Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all that is with us today. Thank you so very much for our fifth annual Women and Girls in Sports Day, where we address those tough topics that others may not consider. We're okay with that. We'd like to introduce to you first Ms. Ronnie Savage, who is our Opportunities Director at WOCPSEN and the brainchild of this project. Ronnie, the floor is yours.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here with us today. I'm so excited. Like Ms. Loretta said, this is our fifth Girls in Sports Day activity where we discuss those difficult subjects around women and girls in sports. And we will continue, excuse me, we will continue to always bring that to the forefront to our community and hope to propel the question or a conversation in your mind. Thank you so much, Loretta. And I would like to introduce Miss Patti Rolf. She is our guest speaker this morning, and she will answer these questions. Loretta will moderate for us today, and thank you so much for that, Loretta.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. So Patti Rolf is the director of the officials development at USA Volleyball. The former volleyball referee who spent 18 years at the international level before retiring at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, Patti was part of the historic all-female gold medal officiating crew at the Rio 2016 volleyball women's finals. She has served as president of the North County region of USA Volleyball in the 90s and was a member of the USA Badger Region Board. She was elected the USA All at Large National Indoor Referees Representative to the Officials Assembly, then became chair of the USA Rules of the Game Commission. Shortly after, she applied to be director of officials for USA Volleyball. That held her to grow the love of officiating the USA. We're excited to have Patti because she has a very clear direction and vision with life experiences and future goals and objectives. Patti, the floor is yours, and thank you so much.
No, Loretta, I'm so excited to be here, Ronnie. Thank you for asking me. Um, this is the most important subject, to be honest with you. If I had like a lot of times Mel Robbins, all these wonderful people that are talking about what's your vision, what's your future, right? This is one of the topics that's so critical to me. In USA Volleyball, 99% of our members are women, right? They're women members. We're growing our youth, but volleyball in the United States is the number one team sport in the country in terms of its growth. Just so you're aware, I don't know if it's an element of no physical contact that's causing people to come towards it because there is no physical contact in volleyball, right? They're all like hockey, girls basketball, or if it's the element of there's no, like, for example, if I'm not the strongest player on the team, there's no way you can hide me in volleyball. By the way, basketball and softball were my number one and two sports. I got a scholarship in basketball for college. But volleyball ended up being where I ended up in collegiate because I played three sports in college. But for some odd reason, everything started going towards volleyball in a very strange way. I still haven't figured out quite how that happened. But one of the recognitions of the sport of volleyball is that for girls and boys, it's non-contact and that there's six players on the floor and the opponent hits that ball at whoever they want. So everybody's going to have the ball coming at them. And there's like in basketball, if there's a two-star players, there may be only a movement between the three main players. And by the way, there's a lot of running, just so you know, lots of running. We get a lot of retired basketball referees come to volleyball at the end of their careers. And it now, by the way, as you guys know, Ronnie's trying to get a hold of me here the last couple of days, and I'm in our annual Rules Commission meeting, and we just passed 1 hour ago and we're going to implement it immediately as soon as it goes through the chain of command. No double on a second contact as long as the ball remains on your side. So for those of you guys that aren't volleyball people, this means that the referees don't have to blow their whistle now at all for doubles. And this is a main challenge for basketball referees, softball referees that come to volleyball, because to judge that's not so easy. So even the game's going to get more simpler and have more rallies for our people. Thus, growing the game for girls and refs, female referees, and our underrepresented groups. I do want you to know that within volleyball, very, very challenging are underrepresented groups, women, and as I mentioned to Ronnie here a few minutes ago, our African American community, our Native American community, our Asian American community, all these groups are underrepresented in volleyball. And one of our main responsibilities as an organization is, because we have a shortage of official, is to bring those people in. We need more refs. Well, here's this huge population, particularly of women, where we have to go recruit them. We have to go bring them in. And people often say, well, they don't reach out to us. They don't want to come and referee. Well, that's because they're not being invited. Women live in a culture of an issue of how we're raised. And people often say to me, like, they go, Patty, how come you didn't, and I'm just apologize, but I'm a storyteller. How come you didn't come to dinner with us last night? We were all talking in the lounge. We all talked about going to dinner. And by the way, it's a bunch of guys. It's a bunch of guys. But I don't show up to
That
dinner.
part.
And they're like, why weren't you at dinner? I said, you did invite me. They go, but we were talking about it. I'm like, I am not going to show up to dinner uninvited. It's always brought up as a female and by my mother. So people say, well, how come the women aren't applying for these jobs? Well, because women want to be like, hey, Loretta, we want you to be a ref. And then we need to support Loretta. We need to mentor it. We need to say, we are with Loretta. We are going to make sure that when she becomes a volleyball referee or becomes a coach at an institution or becomes a senior women's administrator, and then we're going to help her become an athletic director, or whatever she becomes, we are going to be there supporting her. Women aren't going to throw themselves out there in general, which is unfortunate. Of course, we have to raise daughters differently. We need to start teaching our daughters, just go. You go, and then you just keep going. And if people aren't supporting, you keep going.
Mhm.
And I was fortunate enough to be raised by a really weird family, and I will tell you that truthfully. I had my mother. My mother was one of the arrested women, and I think you guys might know this group. They were a bunch of Catholic mothers that were put in jail for doing sit-ins because of Cargill was making landmines, and my mother and the church were against it. So my mother and a couple of women said, let's grab the women in this Catholic community that had the most children, 12, 13, 14 children. We had a lot. And if they get arrested and put in jail, their husbands are going to be calling the mayor, the chief of police, saying, get these women out because I cannot care for these 12 children. And so these big city officials in Hopkins, Minnesota, were leaders. Their wives were all arrested and put in jail. And within very short period, they were all released. And I'm glad to say Cargill no longer makes landmines because of these women. Well, I was raised by that woman, and thus had opportunities other women didn't have because I never really asked permission. I went and said yes. So, I always say my story to the Olympic Games in Rio, particularly, but then in Japan, was my mother's story. My mother told me, just go, don't let anybody tell you no, and just keep going and don't give up. And if you're treated badly, that's normal. Don't worry about being treated badly. So I always remember I felt bad inside, but I was able to say, being treated badly, and I mean this like not being supported, being marginalized, which I was, by the way, plenty of times on many elements, kind of forgotten. By the way, I got left at stadiums. At major championships, I'd go outside to get a ride back with everybody, and it's all men. It's just me by myself. I'm the only female, and I'd go outside, and the bus was gone. I'm like, where? They just left. And I always would get back to the hotel and go, you guys, do you recognize this face? It wasn't on the bus. And then they'd all start laughing because they thought it was hilarious. Thank goodness my mother raised me to have a sense of humor, even though it was a little bit painful, right? And I was able to be resilient. And the word resilience is critical, because without resilience and knowing where you want to go, it's hard to overcome some of these interesting barriers that you face. So I was fortunate. And I think it's funny, Loretta, because you said some of the things. Recently, I just got named, and by the way, only named because of the support and resilience of my male colleagues as well, is I just got recently named president of NORSECA. So I'm on the FIVB Rules of the Games Commission after my retirement from Japan. Yeah, only one of three women on this very big council. And then just late this last fall, I was named president of NORSECA, first female ever to be named president of NORSECA, one of the five major confederations of FIVB, similar to like FIFA. And those are all because of just the overwhelming support of women like you, by the way, in the sport of other sports and volleyball. But second thing, and more to stop talking and to kind of get it back in is I watch sports like women's basketball. I was watching. I'm at a major tournament that we're hosting. USA Volleyball is hosting in Orlando, Florida. It's a huge juniors tournament, 140 courts. I'm watching women's basketball. I'm watching men's basketball, and I'm seeing in men's basketball all men's referees, men's coaches, men. Everybody's mad. So okay, then I'm watching women's basketball, and happily, I'm seeing almost all women. Both teams had women's coaches, women's benches, and two out of the three referees were women. This is important because I do see it in collegiate sports that there are more women that are being hired as their coaches and their assistant and staff. Because remember, the assistants and staff are critical because that's where the training ground is to become a head coach. So you have to be hiring female assistant coaches on these benches. Otherwise, there's no training of the next generation of head coaches. In volleyball, very challenged. We do not have this. We have a majority of our coaches, almost all male referees and coaches in the men's game, and then a majority of our people in the women's game collegiate are especially Division I are males, male assistants on the bench, and then we have a majority of our referees are male. So it's a challenge within volleyball of getting more women because it is all women that are playing. I mean, we have 500,000 members in USA Volleyball. 350 are youth, and a majority of those, and I mean like 99% of that 350 are women. And yet, how are we not getting them to referee and coach? So this is our fight. Loretta, you're muted. It's always a hard thing to remember.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, wow, that's pretty heavy with the numbers, the stats. And I think that's really interesting because what we're talking about today is that the equity that took place during the Summer Olympics of 2024. And so, even though that was an historic situation where the first Olympics in 1900, there was only 22 women participating. And in 2024, half of all participants in the US were women. It makes
Yes.
it appears that we're a space of equity. So what were some of the significant policies that you think helped to achieve that? And what were some of those policies that might have been a challenge or will be a challenge as we move forward in this direction?
Your words in terms of what leadership is doing, right? It is a leadership element in terms of um, getting the representation somewhere in there. Leadership worked hard to have that representation that you saw in the athletes. I will tell you good news, and I'm good news with my hands together praying. Good news came out of our FIVB Rules of the Games meeting, also with the bigger council, that we had a meeting on February 7th. And over again in the documentation that was presented by our president of the Rules of the Game and our new president of FIVB, we have a new president this year, that women are going to be an emphasis on women in officiating and in coaching within the FIVB game. That is the first time from the top that we've heard we are going to push to get more women into the officiating realm out of all the confederations, meaning Africa, Asia, Europe, the US, South America. And we're going to push hard, and we want you guys to emphasize this within your federations, meaning United States, and confederations, meaning NORSECA. And so we are pushing that internally because now from the top, they're saying we must have this, which then gives us permission to go after it. So, for example, USA must have been ahead of the game and I'm very proud of our group of leaders that last year we put forward three, and it's not because they were women, it was because they were the best. We put forward three candidates into the international game that were women in indoor, and we put forward three names on the outdoor beach side to the international game that were women. They were the three best women. Now we're underrepresented by a significant amount at the international level. So we were pleased to say that all six women that were put forward by the U.S. to the international game passed their course and received all their matches and now are certified NORSEC international referees. That was the biggest group of females put forward by any country in the world. And we're really proud of that. But now we have permission from FIVB to do that. So it has to be coming from the top, this support, because if underneath you're trying to do it, they think you're doing it because they're, I hear this all the time. Well, they're not qualified. It's like, oh my gosh, that is not the case. Our women are highly qualified. They just need opportunities to work because you don't become a good driver of a vehicle unless you drive the vehicle. So they're saying, well, women don't have experience. Well, that's because you haven't let them drive the car. Let them drive the car. They will gain the experience. And it's impossible that you have a ratio of 80 to 20, 80 men, 20 women, because you're only letting the men drive and the women aren't being allowed to drive. So let them drive, and then we'll get slowly, like the Olympic participants were, to this center. And my final comment in terms of volleyball, you guys, if I could only have you experience what I had the chance to experience the last 2 years, and especially if you saw the Final Four for women's volleyball, which I had the opportunity to referee. I'm still a referee in the U.S. I referee NCAA. I refereed the Final Four this year. We are seeing, because of the rules changes as well, we are seeing the craziest participation numbers on television and in the stadiums. We've never seen numbers like this. When I go referee at Florida or Texas or Nebraska or Northwestern, those gyms were full. Now they're sold out because, and you're seeing it in basketball. You're seeing it in women's basketball. It's not just one person. By the way, they have this blah, blah, blah effect. I disagree. There is a blah, blah, blah effect. And I'm not saying the name of this blah, 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 because I don't think it's that person. There are multiple female basketball players on multiple teams across the country of every single size, color, culture that are playing that people are attaching themselves to. I'm a young girl in Minnesota. I go to a Minnesota game, women's basketball, women's volleyball, women's softball, women's hockey, and I see this player and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to grow up and be like her. That's what's happening. And so all these women, because of their social media presence and because they're so phenomenal, that's where the stadiums are starting to fill up in pro sports. For volleyball pro sports, we had 14,000 people at a recent program, 9,000, 8,000. I just did a pro series, we had 5,000. They're coming. Everybody's finally opening their eyes. And I think women are stepping up, mothers are stepping up. And I will tell you this, for the first time ever, I purchased, I never, by the way, women are, I'm going to use the frugal. Mothers are frugal. We're more frugal than and I would offer my husband. I'm going to just speak for my husband. I won't speak for all men everywhere, but I think you should say my husband and all men. They buy season tickets. They do this, they do that, and they spend money on all these things. Women are like, nope, I got to save money for the children, for college, for this, for this. We're very frugal. We don't buy season tickets for things. I've never bought season tickets to anything. This year, I was so proud of myself. I bought 4 season tickets to the Madison Pro Women's League. I haven't been able to go to any games yet because I'm reffing, but I'm giving them away to my friends, and I'm supporting pro sports of women. And that's what we're starting to see. Women and men are supporting the women, bringing their daughters to these big games. And so it has to start at home. It has to start in the leadership. And we have to say, has to happen. We're not going to accept these terrible numbers that we see of women participating. Sorry, I'm
Wonderful.
so jacked
That's okay. No,
up.
no,
I'm going to
no.
stop.
I'm psyched too. Susan had her in. She's got some statements and some questions and
I
everything.
don't know about all of that, but I would like to know, what would a recruitment program look like? From your perspective, how should that be structured? How should that be set up? I do softball, basketball, officiating, and this past year, I started doing football. Ronnie and I started doing together.
That's
And
amazing.
so for in one of my softball, excuse me, in one of my softball units, I was the only female in the softball unit, which is a girl sport, for about 2, maybe 3 years. I've since recruited 2 females, and one of the guys recruited 2 females. So now we're up to a whole total of 4. But every time those girls get on the field, they're seeing men.
Yes.
So how would you structure a recruitment program that's aimed specifically at females?
And let me ask you a quick question. Are they refereeing or coaching men, or is it young women that they're working with?
We're all
Who are the players?
umpires.
Who are the
The
players?
players for softball are all females, and they're all high
Okay.
school.
Okay, that's awesome.
Mhm.
That is important because it is we still have a problem even in the US system of if we have young people, particularly 18 and under, because we have in USA Volleyball, we have certification. You can be certified as a referee as an 18, 17, or 16-year-old. And within the 40 regions we have, those regions are really working hard with the 18, 17, and 16-year-old. USA Soccer is doing even greater things. I mean, they've got kids reffing at 12 and they referee the 8-year-olds, right? So they have this incredible format where the older ones are reffing the younger ones. And thus there's no intimidation because they're reffing within their own children, right? And that is a greater way to start children in officiating rather than a young person refereeing senior players or even adults, which can be very intimidating. USA Volleyball has really pushed this recruitment program you're saying. For example, right now we have what's called we just started this year a National Officials Development Program, it's the highest level, but we're recruiting 40-year-old and under only that meet the FIVB criteria to become an international referee. So there's an age limit. You cannot become an international referee if you're older than this date. USA Volleyball got caught a little bit, and so we didn't have a representative this last Olympic Games in Japan in the indoor game, which is unacceptable. We have a team there. We've always had somebody there almost every year, and so we were horrified that this didn't happen. And we got caught in got caught in this weird loop where we didn't have somebody structured to come in. So we developed this National Officials Development Program, 30 individuals that we solicited from all the 40 regions, said, hey, tell us who your strongest performers are. Your talent, just like a basketball team. They gave us the names, one male, but this is what we did. We didn't say, hey, we're sending you a survey, give us your top referee under this age, and we're going to put them in this high performance program and then give them specialized training throughout the year at our major championships and national championships. We said we want one man and one woman. Okay. And then we clarified strongly from remember your underrepresented groups. And then boom. And then they know the numbers. They know our numbers are very unbalanced. And thank goodness someone said, well, I only have one, and it's a guy. And it might be a Caucasian guy. And we said, okay, well, we got to have a woman. You got to give us 2 or you get none. So again, as a leader, we were able to say, you have to come up with 2. You have a top woman, find her, and you got a top guy, find him. And then we brought that into a pool, and then we balanced like the Olympics did. We said we are picking out of the 30, 15 gender issues, males and 15 females. And then out of that, we worked on a balance of the most talented people. Now, remember when Stanford, and I'm just picking Stanford. No, hey, let me be fair. Let me pick Miami because I'm in Florida. Miami Volleyball has a volleyball team. They may select an athlete on their team that's incredibly athletic, jumps out of the gym for volleyball, blah, blah, blah. But maybe they don't have the skills. Does that make sense? They're not a great volleyball player, but Miami knows they will be. So they recruit them and then they train them for 2 years and then boom, they turn into this crazy superstar. We need to do that in officiating. So we're going to recruit these very strong females that may not have the experience because nobody let them. We're going to bring them in because they've got great potential. And then that's why the 15 and 15 for us is fair, because we're getting the strongest potential 15 women, strongest potential 15 men, and then we will bring them up to the level of potential international certification or highest level of national certification. So I think that you have to put into place policies that say, like FIVB is doing, is you must put forward 50% women and 50% men, and people from the underrepresented groups. Because if you eliminate that, when all the deciding people in a group are 75% Caucasian males, which within many systems they are, it makes it difficult, because the bottom line is, when you pick people for something, you pick people you know. This is a fact. They say, well, well, there isn't. I go, no, it's because you're this and all your friends are that. And thus, if you pick a group to be head coaches for our national team, you're going to pick people you know, meaning our national team in terms of officiating. You're going to pick people you know. What you need to do is pick people you don't know who have great recommendations, like Loretta. For example, Loretta, I'm going to get feedback from you. We're looking for African-American female coaches, which we are. I don't know any, okay, because I live in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and this is true. And my child's school, Pewaukee School, I mean, we don't have African-American families. They're not to be found in this rural Wisconsin community. So I go, we need an African-American female. We need a strong woman. There's this woman named Loretta. We know her. She's a trailblazer. She does hockey. Then we go get her. And then, because she's got great talent, we train her and we turn her into a coach for volleyball and to train our younger generation. So they see an African-American female coach and they go, I can grow up and be like her, because you do identify. So Susan, getting to your point, you have these young girls that are in softball. They have to identify. And it's very hard when every single one of the people she's working with are older Caucasian males. Same, volleyball is very big on this. I was by the way, exclusively male. I was always the only female on every roster that there ever was in FIVB. But I made those people my friend. What you're doing, though, it's an issue of recruitment. You tell the guys to go out and find women, get them in, keep working on that. And that's what we're doing. We're telling our people, you have to go find women and you have to go find the underrepresented groups, bring them in, get them with a group, try to get a couple other females with them so they have like some identity with that group, and then try and drag that cadre with into these events so that they're not overcome by the senior group that's there.
Thank you. I have another question.
And I'll keep my questions answers shorter.
Well, no, do what you need to do. With this recent and current, I'll put it, wave of destruction of DEI programs at the federal level, and then far-reaching past that into state business, how will USA Volleyball be impacted? Because you are USA.
Right now, and I'm going like this. Right now, USA Volleyball has a firm commitment to DEI. It's in our mission, it's in our duty, it's in our language that DEI is a main component. We will give equal representation to men and women, considering that 99% of our membership, think about this, 99%, 98% of our membership in USA Volleyball is women. So we are responsible to the members. So the element of DEI is critical for us. Our organization, our leadership has committed to it. And for us, it's a relief, because then we can continue to focus on this being our major objective. Thus, we can put in place procedures that allow us to bring in more female referees, more female coaches, to have specific training for them, because we are terribly underrepresented in that group. And then F5EB, which is our major body internationally, has made it a main component in their language at our last meeting on February 7th, that we are going to recruit more women in places of leadership and in officiating and coaching, because our coaching is completely unrepresented on our national teams. And we are going to work hard to develop and train young women, and particular underrepresented groups, into these positions. And it's in their procedure and policy now for FIVB. So we're really happy about that.
That's really interesting you said that. One of the questions I really wanted to ask is the primary concerns of what is happening with the new regime in regards to creating gender identity in sports. And that's something I know we as women will have to tackle, because it is more heavily engaged as we move forward, and particularly because we're moving into LA 28, which is where our focus is really being presented. What we're looking at is this new policy in women's sports to athletes assigned female at birth. The NCAA president, Charlie Baker, emphasized the need for uniform eligibility standards to provide clarity amongst conflicting state laws. Now, what is interesting, because our new regime leader has stated that the executive order he labels keeping men out of women's sports, which has led to the NCAA to ban transgender athletes from competing in women's college sports. How do you think, Patty, that will have to be addressed in the future, not only for sports overall and volleyball, but let's consider 2028. I'm sure this is going to affect us with women entering the sports arena for the Olympics.
Loretta, this is a question that is, I have personal feelings regarding this, very strong personal feelings regarding this. A strong meaning that just my background, my mother, my how I was brought up, my inclusion mentality, right? I'm always about inclusion. I want people to be able to participate and to feel comfortable with the groups that they're in. However, this, for me, this is an element that is with our leadership team, because we had an element because of our leadership. Our past president, Jamie Davis. We had a policy of our transgender folks, and we had young men playing on young women's teams, fully supported, as we had in our laws. Now with the change of the word regime is excellent. And then also we have a new leader with our group, and with these new laws now, everybody, there's going to be new processes, right? So I'm staying out of this element right now. If you took me offline and we drank coffee, I'd tell you personally my views. But because I do represent USA Volleyball in this call, and we have yet to figure out what to do with the current political climate and what's happening and the laws that are moving forward through the different organizations, this is when I have to stay out of.
Absolutely, I understand that. So there's something that's really interesting, and this was going to lead to the next question. It's called gender parity, and I'm sure you understand what that's all about.
Yes.
We've seen it occur in African athletes, particularly with the Paris 2024. They were the first to achieve gender parity, but it was gender eligibility that took center stage. And this was known in the case of one of the African athletes from Algeria, that was the boxer, Amani Khalif, and how she hit so hard. And the European individuals stated, the Italian athlete stated how, quote, I've never been hit so hard in my life.
I remember that.
It challenged her gender. And she's not the first African that has been challenged over the years. And I think this question and this comment needs to be discoursed, because you and I started the conversation.
Yes.
So what we're looking at is how racism embraces athleticism when a certain people look or has a certain physique based on historical or ancestral relationship. Here, this woman, they challenge her gender.
Yes.
Because of her capacity.
Yes.
What are your thoughts around that? What are some of the things we can do to achieve that this will not go forward in 28?
Yes, it's that, to me, that's horrifying. I kept thinking, like, if I was that female athlete, let's say I was 6'2", and by the way, I as a college player, I don't know what, and it's interesting because I'm German descent, right? But when I was a college player, I was gigantic. First of all, I was fortunate to have one of the rare, I was at North Dakota State and I was one of the rare young female athletes in I graduated in 81 from high school and so went to college 81, 82, my freshman year. We had a strength training program where we had an elite strength coach and we had access. Now, many female athletes in college did not have access to the strength room. Only the men's football or men's teams did. We were fortunate that we were allowed to go in, and I turned into the most giant human woman you've ever seen. I loved the weight room. It was my favorite place. I was there almost every single day. I found great joy being there. The strength coach, who was a guy, was the most amazing coach and who supported the women that were in there. And I remember, by the way, going to games and the women across the floor would look at me and go, "Oh my God, you're like a guy." I remember them telling me that, and I went, "I am like a guy, and it's awesome." But I remember back then, nobody was questioning my ability to play. They were always like more of, like, "Whoa." I'm not very tall, by the way. I'm only 5'8", but I really should have gone into weightlifting. It was really that should have been my place. Um, I think this element of questioning, because by the way, I was roughing the pro team. There was a pro series event happening in Kansas City. It's in the top 6 team from the professional league, Love Professional League. They have 6 teams. They're playing in this big tournament. And I will tell you this, I have never seen the size of the women in this professional league. I've never seen it before. They are bigger, taller, stronger than I've ever seen in my whole life. And I've done the pros forever, Olympics, professional leagues, and then now this league in the US. But within the US system, our US women are bigger than any other country out there. These are facts. Everybody tells me that when I'm at the games, they go, "Your women's team is gigantic." They're gigantic, some skill, some not skill, but gigantic women. And the fact that they have to defend themselves because of their incredible capacity and power and strength, to me, is unacceptable, to be honest with you. And so this is going to continue to be a challenge as you have the different groups, because of whatever it is that's happening, the training, the culture, the background, their parents, that they have to defend themselves as females. We had this happen, by the way, this year for the first time in the 23-24 season. In the spring of this last year, 24, we had a parent go to championship, say that girl shouldn't be playing, that's a guy. And it wasn't a guy, it was a young female. And thank goodness we have training in this with we have what's called an arbitrator. They're a person especially there to deal with parents. Thank God, because that would be group I don't want to deal with. And she went and said enough to these parents. She is listed on the roster. She is playing on that team. And that's enough. We will not have any of that this political climate coming in here, just because the young woman on that team is incredibly powerful. So I think this is a continual challenge for us, when you have these extremely talented and elite athletes that are coming and developing all across the world.
I totally get that, Patty. My love in sports came through bodybuilding.
Yes,
And
it's
I
the
started,
greatest.
yeah, and I started in fitness back in the 80s when it started.
Yes,
And I used to go to the gym and the guys used to go, "You can't lift this little girl." I'd lift 100 pounds. They go, they get mad respect,
yes, that's
but
right.
yeah, but one of the biggest challenges is they would look at me side eye. It's like, you're packing a lot of muscle. Yeah, I do. But that is a genetic thing. So I think that's something you're right. We're going to have to challenge and we're going to have to observe and we're going to have to support women that want to engage in sports and they want to develop the bodies in the way they want to develop their bodies.
That's
It
right.
is what it is.
It is.
So thank you so much, Patty. Our second guest, Mr. Jeff Thompson, has just come on. We're going to yield the floor to him if that's okay with you. And
Thank you very much, everybody.
All righty. Thank you, Patty. So we want to introduce Jeff to you because Jeff is one of the loves of WOCPSEN, and also he is just a powerhouse. Now, Jeff has 40 years track record in the social and human development of young people in communities through sport. As a 5-year world karate champion, sports administrator, and politician, he has realized a unique range of skill sets that have seen him to advise, develop, and deliver social and human projects and program initiatives with a specific emphasis on the balance between corporate social responsibility and legacy benefits to young people and community globally. Jeff is the founder and chair of the Youth Charter, it's an international, UK international charity and UN non-governmental organization, which for 31 years has worked in the sports for development and peace movement in communities for historically deprived and disadvantaged global communities. The other wonderful things about Jeff is he is on the WOCPSEN International Congress Committee. He is on our Sports Opportunity Committee, and he is our international chair for our International Sports Opportunity Committee. Thank you, Jeff. The floor is all yours. And I know we rushed you. We love you for showing up. He is replacing our other guest, Diane, who has taken ill and wasn't able to be with us. Are you able to come on,
Thank you so
Jeff?
much, Jeff.
Thank you, Loretta, for that illustrious introduction. I'd hoped to join you sooner, but for all the skill sets I've developed, I still struggle to get internet connections with all that Mr. Musk is supposed to be doing in the new administration in those United States. I spent the last 40 minutes or so, but I'm really glad to join you in this first instance and engage with what I call the WOCPSCN sisterhood. And Loretta has developed a long journey and relationship over the last number of years. But I'm absolutely honored and privileged to be joining you, because as I always say to Loretta, my late mother developed me as a mummy's boy. And having lost my father at a very young age, I was developed by some very strong women. And you all represent that strength and I think resilience and character that actually represent what women in sport should be about and continue to be about when we start looking at the issues of inequality that still exist, and I think becoming even more important in the sporting ecosystem and society at large. My co-founder, who is also my wife, is a fellow world champion I met her 42 years ago, and she's a formidable individual in her own right, and I hope that you'll get the chance to meet her at some stage in the future. But my specific emphasis in relation to the youth charters work in what we do and have done for over 3 decades is to engage young people through sport, art, culture, and digital, equip them with the mental, physical, emotional health, well-being, and ambition, and then empower them with an aspiration of further higher education, employability, or entrepreneurship. That is the ecosystem of social, cultural, and economic impact, and we have done that through the bidding, hosting, and legacy of major games. So there's a long journey of major games, but the specific focus and emphasis of where I believe this auspicious committee and the related activity of program, conference, seminar, and workshop activity can be taken from the Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games as we lead up to and include now LA 28. It is an important window of time because sport for development for peace is now still seen as an aspiration, because as only major games can do, they bring a spotlight on the world in both its challenge and opportunity. I think LA 28 will be a unique opportunity because it was only in the 1984 Olympics where Peter Uberoth created an investment in the games and left a legacy of those games. I think what was, my recollection serves, $200 million, which was invested on Wall Street. That gave rise to the Amateur Athletic Foundation, now the LA 84 Foundation. Anita de France is someone I've known for many years. And because she understood what we were facing back in the early 90s when she visited Manchester, we took a group of young people to Los Angeles, and it was there we brought back the inspiration of what you will see as being the Youth Charter's work. One of our young women leaderines, Odessa McCullough, is now based in Los Angeles and works as an agent for script writers and feature scripts. And she was just inspired by the trip and said she'd want to come back. She went to Howard University, got a scholarship, and the rest they say is history. So that's the real, I think, the essence of what I believe sees the collaboration of effort and partnership, which is at the very core of what we do, realize the potential that I believe exists. So my final example would be our last 19 years of work with the late, great Muhammad Ali. The Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville, Kentucky, has seen a number of projects and programs that sees our advocacy and see the Ali scholars visit the UK, and we've hosted them on 2 occasions. But more importantly, when he passed in 2016, his legacy was to see women empowered. He felt that his beliefs had seen a far greater need for an equality of upliftment and of itself by way of his beliefs should see a legacy opportunity for all. As a result, the Float Like a Butterfly social coach leadership program was inspired as a legacy leadership program that would engage, equip, and empower women, and in particular, address the issue of violence against women and girls. That is something that is now being developed as we speak into modules, workshops, conferences, and a whole campaign that first and foremost sees young women and girls, and women at large for that matter, the levels of violence against women and girls is at its highest, believe it or not. Some say it's because the data is being recorded. I say that young men, for example, have not fostered healthy relationships and respect for women in society. And with all due respect, they have learned that through the digital lifestyle and the mobile lifestyle. So I do put this before you, ladies. Snoop Dogg as being the ambassador for LA 28 is something that must be challenged and challenged. And if he wishes to redeem himself, then he can actually do so by putting programs like this that ensures that globally we get a reset of that respectful relationship that I believe you all in your respective achievements do so and lead so by example. I'm going to pause there because I want to share so much with you, but I think I've downloaded as much as I believe time would allow that would hopefully see you ask any questions or any points of clarification you might want to derive from my humble submission to you all. But again, I'm absolutely privileged and honored to be able to share this opportunity with you and look forward to the journey that sees you. On my final question, I asked the question because it gets a mixed response. How many of you have seen Woman King? So is that Susan? Susan, no, I've lost one face. 2 seconds.
It's on my agenda to do. I just haven't done it yet.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Ladies, I could not, every young girl, young woman, or woman I come into contact with, when they talk about the issue of violence against women and girls, I say, please watch that film.
Yeah.
And you will come out not only empowered, but resilient to the fact that the gender counterparts who feel they impose their insecurities on you are the lesser of the 2 gender equivalents. So it's something I implore every woman to watch. And then I think you empower yourselves by such a spiritual factor of 100. And I have boys and men watch it, and they come out a lot more humbly as a result.
Yeah. It's really powerful. And the fact that it's based on a true story. This is real history. It is our diaspora history, which is very important to understand. One of the biggest problems I find is how we're always positioned, particularly in media, as being broken all the time. If we were so broken, how would we be standing here now? There had to be some strength and some power to get through those difficult times. And I share that with young people often. You ain't seen nothing yet. Let me tell you some stories. And Patty and I were talking about that before we started, that we have to start writing them stories down. We got to encourage and support. And we, as the elders, as the experience, as the kindred, must do that. And I just want to tell all of you, and because it's being recorded and it'll be on YouTube and it'll be forever, we love Jeff with all our heart, soul, and might. He is such a wonderful person. And I even shared this with USF. Jeff got us. Rodney and I have been trying to pull this off for 12 years. 2 years ago, we presented it to Jeff and he went, aha, I got it. And we've been rolling ever since. And I'm so excited and I'm so devoted to him and his direction because we're on the same path. and I'm excited about what the world has in store for us. Rodney, you have a question? Go ahead, baby. What you got to say?
Yes, I wanted to pose the question to Jeff regarding our talk today about has he seen in his experience uh, the balancing, or was there a balance in this Summer Olympics that we just came out of, with gender, with equality for women? What did you see, and how did you see women rise or fall in this past Summer Olympics?
It's a very good question. And I think we would all accept that when you have an Olympic and Paralympic Games, you see women given on a global stage the chance to shine and to inspire women from all continents, all walks of life, all beliefs, all identities, that they are able to achieve at levels of excellence that many countries would not, by the people who watch the Games, be otherwise exposed to, inspired, or even changed in their mindset and their view of women in sport. The medals were won, and we're doing some research now to look at the gender balance of medals that were won at the Paris Games, because I think it's very important to do so. The impact of medals won, especially we're looking also in the Afro-Caribbean diaspora space, because, and I'd hope to have the figures, but as I've said, some mighty challenges have been faced but overcome with me joining you. When you can get a leaderine from the Caribbean win the country's first Olympic gold in 100 and 200 meters, silver, gold and silver respectively, and have 80,000 people turn out to welcome their first ever multi-medalist at the Olympic Games, you are able to affect social, cultural, economic, and even political change. I think the lobbying that takes place alongside the Games is where it needs to be strengthened. There are lots of initiatives, but I always draw the comparative that a successful Games means you leave a social, cultural, and economic, gender equitable message and programs of hope and opportunity. And I do not believe that Paris has gone anywhere near that. And in that regard, that's why 2 years ago, when Loretta and Ronnie made contact with me, as I've said, my self-confessed mummy's boys, and knowing my place in the world of equality and gender equality in particular, I think there's a lot more to do, and that's why LA 28 really does present a golden opportunity to take this equity agenda, women in sport, women in society, women in life, to an absolute level of unprecedented, I think, profile, but having real tangible social, cultural, and economically evidenced impact. And we, with LA 28, 2 years later, we will have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. One of those key goals is gender equality. And that's what we have hooked into in the Youth Charter in providing the community campus. Intergenerational, women at the very core, and delivery and empowerment. So I think the Games, one would look at the IOC members. Is there gender equality and parity? Is there the right corporate sponsorship going into the same equivalence of sports? So I'd be looking at each of the Olympic sports. As we saw, when we look at golf, we know that's a major central project of WOC PSCN. When are we going to have the equivalent of a Tiger Woods? I can report back to Patti and others, Rafat. The French government are not allowing you to wear your headwear in sport. That should be challenged by the IOC. That has only been passed yesterday. These are the issues that we must be at the forefront of. And I think that's where ultimately there is an election for the new president of the International Olympic Committee. These are issues that you can be influencing, you can be mobilizing the sport for development and women at all levels, social, grassroots development, performance and excellence. When are we going to see an IOC woman as president? That would be my ultimate response to that very good question, Ronnie. Why have we got any candidates? I do not believe we have. Why not? And isn't it time?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have a direction, and I'm really excited that we all were able to come together and to create this discourse, very important discourse. I know I'm motivated even more than before. Are there any other comments, questions, or anything before we close out? Well, Patty, thank you so very much, dearest. Boy, we got to
Ronnie
talk.
has another question.
I'm
Loretta,
sorry, Miss Ronnie. Oh,
don't ignore.
don't
Uh,
ignore
I,
her.
I just want to ask Patty before we close out as well. Patty, how do you see us going forward in the future? As Jeff saying, we need a IOC woman in that helm. Do you see us getting closer to that as far as international and the Olympics? You've been on the international stage. And where do you see us as women and the gender equity coming up to that point?
Well, sir, your point, first of all, it's so great to meet you. I don't know of you, which is tragedy because I'm listening to you going, oh my gosh, I want to copy everything you wrote and put it into our USA system. And I'll be very brief. It's your issues of safety, health, and wellness for women within sport, whether they're a player, a referee, a coach. Those are the elements that women say that pull them away from certain elements because they don't feel safe. And that's a direct result of how they're being treated by their male counterparts, not their female counterparts. It's always the male counterparts because of the potential threats that they face either as a referee, coach, or player. But getting back to your point, listen, I'm the first female president of NORCECA. I think what this vision of women leading women, particularly, but women leading any group, the U.S. For those of you guys that are aware of U.S. politics, and if you're not, it is a very challenging time. But I think women are rallying to coalesce with a mission and we each have our own, and then we have this group mission because we are under threat here in the United States right now. Regardless of the leader, the culture right now is under threat, the worst threat I think we've ever faced. And so women have to coalesce together. And I will tell you this, just as a joke, but not really, that if Michelle Obama would have run for president, and that we would not be where we are right now. If Michelle Obama, and I'm only picking her because I adore her. I think she's the finest female leader that we've seen out. We've got many great female leaders, but if Michelle Obama had run, we would. I don't care what party. She should have developed her own party. We would have won because she is a tremendous leader. So this element of an IOC president being female, or a FIVB president, or a whatever it is, leading whatever group, we have plenty of incredibly powerful, strong, and intelligent women who would run an organization well. And what we need from women, and this is again my hope for all of us, is that we have to recruit them. Somebody did not recruit Michelle Obama, or the year she spent in the White House, she decided, I don't want to go through that again. So that's probably what happened. But rather than recruiting her husband, we should have recruited her. And then we need to recruit these talented women to run for IOC president and support them and line up and lobby the groups behind them to make sure they are elected. Same thing in USA, same thing for our refs, our coaches, our leaders of companies, our leaders of organizations. We need to hunt our top women down. We need to find them, we need to develop them, and then we need to put them in the position to lead under safe and supported environments, like you mentioned. And but that comes from the coalescing of the team around them. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing. USA Volleyball is fully committed to it. And I think by having bigger organizations like that, especially you, sir, that it has to be a worldwide campaign, and we have to drive this from our different groups. And I'm so excited to be here.
Patty, what you've Michelle Obama in 2012 was the lead political representation of her husband for the Olympic and Paralympic Games in London.
Yes.
She completely transformed the Games Village. The University of East London, which I chaired for 2 years, hosted the American Olympic and Paralympic teams. and she literally has left a legacy that is still being felt today.
Yes.
It is so true, and believe me, what you're experiencing across the pond, if you sneeze, we catch a cold. There are serious issues that I believe require women reestablishing, repurposing, and redefining themselves with the absolute movement of support that sees. So, for example, we know in football where you will be hosting the FIFA Women's World Cup and subsequent Men's World Cup, and I think that is where, I mean, what USA, soccer in your part of the world, football over here in Europe, what was achieved just took women's empowerment and gender equality to a completely different level.
Yes.
In Europe, in England, the England soccer team, the Lionesses, as they're nicknamed, won the Euros, and they have transformed. Boys and girls are playing in the same soccer team now.
Yes.
We're not seeing it translate into, as you know, as DEI over there was cancelled. What is EDI, equality, diversity, inclusion, has been cancelled here.
Yes.
We have to repurpose. We have to rededicate ourselves. And yeah, I was amazed that Michelle Obama did not establish her own party. I think she would have had such a groundswell. But I see her as Secretary General of the UN. But that would just be shackles.
No. That would be amazing.
Another woman of incredible global potential. I think there are so many, and this is what I'm saying. I think if they ever came together, I think that the men who sit on their hands and become quite lazy would have to either step up or move out. And I think that is what the effort needs to be about. Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, incredible force of nature and doing things that we never thought possible. So I think there's a lot of optimism that you should be, I think, pursuant of. And I think clearly what you're doing, Pati Rolf, and what you're doing as a collective with LA28, you can change the world. I genuinely believe that.
Yes.
And just excited at the prospects of meeting the challenges that lie ahead and turning them into opportunities.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we're going to make sure Patty's on our committee. Yeah, we're going to draw everybody in because
we're bringing Patty into the fold.
Yeah,
I am bringing Patty into the fold.
There's capacity in numbers, and we're going to have those numbers to make the change. And you see our illustrious leader, international leader, Jeff is for real. I tell folks, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, but Jeff is for real. We be having some serious dialogues. We go deep. But we want to thank you all for being with us. This is our annual event. It has been our 5th discussion for Women's and Girls National Day in Sports. And we appreciate all of you for being there for us. As we have these conversations, we will not shy away. Next year, it'll be more intense. But we also know that Susan and Ronnie was talking, it looked like we're going to have one in between next year. So look forward to that happening. The International Sports Opportunity Committee, which is LA28, we are always looking for community members on that committee as we move forward. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we have a discussion with the University of San Francisco on how they're going to support us in moving into the next direction. So we have a strategy. We have a 3-point platform for ISOC under WOCPSEN's Urban Girls Suburban Swirl, and we are moving forward. Thank you so very much for being with us, all of you.
I give a shout out to my student.
Okay.
And I would like to thank Dr. Susan Hayes. She was one of our guest speakers last year for us, and she always brings her support and her students with her. And I am definitely bringing Dr. Susan into the fold also because she is the psych of this international thing, and she can give us the background on how people are thinking in here. So
what's really interesting about this, if you are in our circle, we recruit you. Listen, nobody can tell me no. That's not a word. I don't know what that word means. So trust me, I won't bug you because Jeff will let you know. I chased him down until he had to show up.
He did. Yes, he did.
You did.
Loretta, can I end with one success story
Yes,
and just it's
please.
just a story to end with on a note of
Yes.
what Mr. Thompson said. And I didn't mention it, and I don't know why. So this is a leadership issue that you mentioned. The University of Nebraska, I don't know if you heard the story, the University of Nebraska Athletic Department and the state of Nebraska, this means all of the leaders supported a Women's in Sports Day when the University of Nebraska women's volleyball team hosted a volleyball game this last year outside in the football stadium, which the football program fully supported. They had over 92,000 fans come
Wow.
to this game. They had the military fly over. This is again a state supported event. And this is what you're saying. You said, get these folks to support these major women's initiatives. The entire state thing, they had a flyover of planes, they had all this crazy stuff, they had fireworks, they had 92,000 people come. This in 2024, the largest attendance record in a women's team sport in the world. They broke the soccer record that happened in Europe. This is because the state of Nebraska and all of its leaders, the University of Nebraska and all of its leaders came together, supported the women's team, and they broke the world record of a team event or of any event in sport. 92,000 people. The people that came to that game, men, women, children, political leaders, said it was the greatest day in Nebraska of all time. This is what can happen when the things that Mr. Thompson are saying, these things can happen and they can happen now. And it's possible.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that word of encouragement. That lifts my spirits.
Yes.
So thank you so very much for being with us. We appreciate you all so very much. Please go to our website, WOCPSCN. We have our vision is the values of gender equity and equality. And we do that under 4 pillars, which are our principles of practice. They are community development, education, which Urban Girl, Suburban Swirl is under. They are global sustainability, and it's women's health. Those are our 4 pillars that we focus in on globally. We have 12 chapters in 12 countries and growing. So the work is there. We're doing the work. Our theme is one community at a time. That's all. If we can get one, we're good. Please go to our website, WOCPSCN.com. Take a look at us. All of you have been indoctrinated into the International Sports Opportunity Committee. Our international president is there. He will call you out. Trust me on that. Ronnie, thank you so much for your vision. This is all Ronnie's doing. She had this vision since 12 years ago, and she's finally pulled it off and doing an excellent job. And I have to push her and prod her sometimes because she
Thank
gets
you. You're
off,
right.
off track. But once I can get her on track, we're good to go. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Ronnie, closing words.
My closing words are I'm so grateful in this moment right here, right now. I thank you, each and every one of you, and I love you from the bottom of my heart. It's just full. I just don't have any words. Thank you so much. Thank you to my ride or die, Loretta. She's there. Like she said, she's pushing and prodding me, and she moves me from this point to this point. So I love you, Loretta, and thank you all
Me
for
too.
coming and being here and being a part of this.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.